It's really interesting how adamant many folks are to assert that things like the law of the universe or the underlying energy of the universe is love and peace and all these kind of things like that, when there in fact is no such thing. Let's see, Siri.
Where would you like to go?
2005 Sandbridge Road.
Getting directions to 2005 Sandbridge.
So there is no such thing when we look at the essence of what the universe actually is, the fundamental nature of reality. And even if we are going to look at it theologically, philosophically, mathematically, in every way that we look at it, this is nonsense. And here's what. So first, we have to understand that my axiom is that the fundamental nature of reality is eternal. That's it. It's not vibration. It's not particles. It's not a wave or a point. It's not some specific energy. It's not any one thing. The fundamental nature of reality is eternal. It's eternity. And so from that, all possibility has to be allowed. All possibility is extant. Everything is possible within this understanding. So when you look at it from this viewpoint, you could see the logic here. So when people say things like that the law of the universe is love, and that's the one main thing, and so love is within inside us all, it would be the same thing, those same people, if you presented them with the idea that no, hate and destruction rather than love, and I should say love and creation, right, just to give it some opposites, is the law of the universe. Then they would argue adamantly, no, it's not. And also, even to say that neutrality, the exact in-between of love, hate, creation, destruction, is the ultimate law of the universe, is also not entirely accurate. The thing is that in various spaces in the universe, these things may be law there because of the way of the makeup of the various different beings and how they perceive things in their corner of reality. So for example, the way that we feel pain, the way that we experience things in the physical world, we have nociceptors, right? Nocioception, we feel pain. If we get burned, if we get struck, and various different things cause us to feel bad. So to us, the things that don't feel good, those things are inherently bad to us. So murder and torture and all of those things to us, if somebody is doing it to us, right, we perceive it as evil, as bad. But if you can imagine that there is a world in where the tearing apart people, burning them, cutting them open, actually feels pleasurable, and in an eternal universe you have to allow for there being such a possibility, even as abhorrent or repulsive as it may be to us in our existence on this planet, right? Just because it's repulsive to us here does not mean that somewhere else those things are entirely not just acceptable, but they are sought after just as much as people here seek after sexual pleasure. To another group of beings that are completely composed in a different way, it's pleasurable for them to go around torturing and murdering and tearing each other apart, mutilating not only others but themselves because it feels good, right? Here suicide and murder and things like that are, as I said, they're abhorrent. They're they're repulsive to us. So we therefore classify it as bad. Just as much as if you look at, for example, the discovery of and the identification of what we call extremophiles that live near hydrothermal vents near the seafloor, where the temperatures are extremely hot and these vents are pumping out sulfur, things that for example, the smell of sulfur, for one, is repulsive to many people, the rotten egg smell, right? Or the fact that sulfur can be toxic in certain levels, and the amount of heat down there would cook us alive. Whereas in that very same environment, there are creatures that thrive on that. So even right there in itself, the point is made. Right? There are beings that exist in completely different environments that we do, and things that we find repulsive and painful, displeasurable, to them is what gives them life. So the whole idea, even the emotional understanding of love to be the fundamental nature, or to be what some people attempt to say is, the law of the universe, and that's, all beings are born with this love, and that's what's inherent. It's not. Eternal possibility is the fundamental nature of the universe. Vale todo, anything goes. We here happen to have a certain makeup, and we have the free will to choose certain types of experiences. But that does not in any way mean that just because we have the makeup to receive in a certain way these experiences, and we decide for the most part, right, through consensus, what the laws are based off of what we understand as right and wrong, right, moral and ethics, it's because we agree that that's how we want to live, doesn't mean that that is fundamentally the law of everything. It means that that's how we in particular thrive. That's it. In this particular world that we live on. The universe itself is an eternally open system. The planet Earth is a closed system. It's closed in by its various different levels of atmosphere and its isolation in this solar system. And that in a larger group of solar systems in this galaxy, right, there are various other different stars that have planets around them. We could call them solar systems, although solar, we usually, or Helios, we give the name of our sun from the Greek, right? But this galaxy then is another closed system. And even so far as we can see, our visible known universe is a closed system. And so outside of that, we have other systems. There are other universes that have their own closest, so on and so forth, right? But in the larger scheme of things, the entire universe is an eternal open system. And in eternal space, you have eternal possibility. Even just pondering eternal space itself, you will inevitably come to the understanding, if you think through it reasonably, logically, that all possibilities are extant. That somewhere, in some place, there are these beings that may, in a lot of ways, look very much like us, maybe even a copy of you and me and everyone, but the way that their senses have been developed, that the things that we find the most displeasurable, they find to be the most pleasurable and even necessary to their existence. Just like we need sleep to thrive, they may just stay awake all the time and go through the different types of breakdown and what we consider to be degradation that the body experiences through lack of sleep. But they do this on a regular basis. There are creatures and beings just dying out all the time in what we would consider painful ways, but to them is the way of existence. It seems completely illogical and unfathomable to us, but that does not mean that it does not exist. And this is what is so difficult for folks to understand about eternity and the eternal reality. And this is, there are even some limited interpretations of the understanding of eternity in, the many worlds interpretation, right, that gives rise to the ideas of, multiverses and things like that, right? But those are all limited perspectives, because eventually, again, what everybody comes around to is wanting to position and to label all the different worlds and existences as somehow having to obey in some way the rules that we experience in our particular corner, our tiny space in an eternal universe. And that's only accurate and correct in our limited space. In the entirety of existence, it's not accurate. It's not incorrect. It's just only correct under certain set of circumstances. And that's okay. There are things that are correct under certain conditions, and under other conditions they're not correct. It's like the extremophile example, right? You can have life in those conditions, but you see, even that is a special closed system that they wouldn't be able to thrive in the more open system of the, even not just out of the water on the surface of the earth, but going away from those hydrothermal vents where that sulfur and the types of nutrients that they require are just climbing in elevation and going to cooler, less sulfuric waters, for example, might be detrimental to them, right? Just like the higher we go in our atmosphere, the less we're able to breathe efficiently, and eventually if you leave into outer space, it gets colder, the temperatures are too extreme for us, the radiation from the sun, and there's not enough oxygen for us to breathe, and we die, right? So all of these things need to be considered about this idea of attempting to make everything so anthropocentric or human-centered, which has been an issue that has been such a problem for so long that humans have had, is wanting to make everything so familiar to us. And that's just not the way that reality works. You can easily, if you put enough thought into it, come to that understanding. So all of this because I hear a lot of these things about how, we are in this universe of love, and the underlying nature of humans is love and peace and all of this other hippy dippy airy fairy stuff. It's just not. It's not true. It's not ultimately true. The ultimate truth is anything goes. The ugliest, most horrible things in existence to us, what we would consider to be horrible things, those things exist. That's it. And in some places, these are all good. I mean, you can even look at the variety of humans and the different things that people do on this earth, right? The most horrible people who abuse children and animals, and rapists and murderers, and people who torture, and crazy warlords, and all of these different things, right? That we have on earth, this variety of people who decide to do these things, right? Maybe they're completely deranged, and not to them. To us, they're deranged, right? Because we wouldn't do that. Would we? I don't know. Would you? Some of the horrible things that are labeled horrible out there, and so Another thought that had come to me when I was thinking about these things is that people, we have, there's this idea in certain religions about hell, right? This place of everlasting torture, and sometimes it has fire and people burning and being tortured, right? But you don't have to. Those things are human devices. Those are human creations, because humans do those things. I saw a video once that made me so angry and sad at the same time, of these people in this place using blowtorches and burning dogs with them. Like the dogs were eventually going to be used for food, right? Some places they eat canines, but the way that these people were slaughtering them, I mean, they were burning the genitals of these dogs with blowtorches, before they literally bashed them over the head with bats and clubs and stuff like that. Like, just the most inhumane ways that they were killing these animals to eat them. Like, I mean, to us, that is insane, but these people are doing that. So my point is that all these ideas of hell and demons that torture and stuff like that, those are people. Those ideas come from people. People do that stuff. Human beings do those things. What we would consider the worst human beings amongst us are the ones who do those kind of things to animals and other people. We don't have to. We are the demons just as much as we are the angels. All of this stuff that people want to write in books and say are these other gods and creatures, there very well may be those kind of beings extant, and we might even now, by modern considerations, think of them as extraterrestrials or aliens, right? Up in the sky, right? The heavens. So there very well may be beings that exist in that way. However, at the same time, there are just as cruel and just as delightful human beings on Earth. And we have just as much variety of all of these things right here, that we don't have to go exploring outside. But we think about these things in mind. We have the imagination to do so, right? So everything's all right with thinking and using imagination and coming to the understanding of what exists in the ultimate open system of reality. It doesn't mean that we take on those things and it gives us liberty to go ahead and just be willy-nilly and do whatever we want here, because that's not how it operates. People feel pain here from certain things, and those things to certain people are not good. So we follow the rules that exist because of how we're made up here. And if we were to go somewhere else and there are different rules, we might have to, we would have a problem in like a torture world, right? We would arrive there and they'd want to start torturing us. They would come to us, and upon greeting us, like, imagine we flew a ship there, they would shoot it down, right? And then any survivors in there, they would immediately start beating and torturing us, not because they find us a threat, but because that's like their greeting. I know. You see, to us, it sounds ridiculous and unthinkable, but that is the nature of that is the reality in our existence, which is eternal. Anything is possible, and there's enough space, eternal space, for all of these things to play out at some point in time, in some way.